I didn't realize I was holding my breath until I heard the voicemail beep. It was from my son again, Marcus. The message was only 8 seconds long. "Hey Mom, something came up with the guys. Rain check on Sunday? Talk soon." Rain check. That phrase had become his signature. Like a branded stamp on every plan we made, every Sunday dinner I prepared, every birthday lunch I suggested, every holiday gathering I hoped for. This was the 14th time in a row. I stood in my kitchen in Winnipeg, looking at the roasted chicken I'd spent 3 hours preparing. The potatoes were golden, the carrots glazed, the apple pie cooling on the counter. I'd even set out the good china, the plates my late husband Thomas and I got for our wedding 42 years ago. I sat down at the table. Alone. Again. The pattern had started small. 3 years ago, after Thomas passed, Marcus began joining his buddies for their Sunday golf games. "It's how I decompress, Mom," he'd said. "The guys need me. We've got this tournament circuit thing going." At first, it was once a month, then twice, then every week. Our Sunday dinners became background noise to his tea times. His wife, Stephanie, would text apologetic emojis. Sometimes she'd add, "You know how important his golf network is for his career." I did know. Marcus was a financial advisor. His golf buddies were clients, potential clients, networking opportunities. I also knew I was his mother. The woman who sat with him through every fever, every heartbreak, every failure and triumph. The woman who was now apparently less important than a game played with little white balls. One Sunday, I asked him directly, "Marcus, can we just have dinner on a Tuesday instead? Any day you're free?" His response came via text 3 days later. "Tuesdays are poker night with the guys. Thursdays are squash. Mom, you know I'm busy. Just do whatever you want for dinner. You don't need to wait for me. Do whatever I want." Those 5 words sat in my chest like stones. So I did. I stopped cooking on Sundays. I stopped calling to confirm. I stopped setting 2 places at the table. I stopped waiting. And do you know what happened? Nothing. Marcus didn't notice. Not for 8 months. 8 entire months of me not reaching out, not asking, not trying. The silence from my end was met with equal silence from his, except for the occasional text. "Hope you're well, Mom," with an emoji. Always an emoji, as if that substituted for actual presence. If you stopped showing up the way I did, how long do you think it would take before someone noticed you were gone? For me, the answer was 8 months. And even then, he only noticed because Stephanie asked him, "When's the last time you saw your mother?" I was 63 years old. I'd been widowed for 3 years. I lived alone in the house where I'd raised Marcus, surrounded by photos of a family that felt like it existed only in the past. My days were quiet. Too quiet. I'd retired from teaching the year before Thomas died. Now my calendar was empty except for the library volunteer shift every Wednesday. The library. That's where everything changed. I was reshuffling the biography section one Wednesday afternoon when I heard someone say, "Excuse me, do you know where I might find books on Canadian military history?" I looked up. The man standing there was tall, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a plaid shirt and jeans. There was something gentle about the way he held himself. "Patient, present. Aisle 7, I said. "Second shelf from the top." He smiled. "Thank you. I'm George, by the way. George Sullivan. I just moved to Winnipeg last month." "Helen," I replied. "Helen Morrison. Welcome to the city." That's how it started. A simple exchange in a library. But George came back the next Wednesday, and the one after that, we started talking. First about books, then about music, then about life. George was 65, a retired engineer from Vancouver. Widower. His wife had passed 5 years earlier. He had a daughter, Claire, who lived in Montreal. They spoke every Sunday. Every single Sunday. Without fail. "She calls me," he said one afternoon as we sat in the library cafe. "Even when she's busy. Even when she's traveling. She makes time." I felt something crack inside me when he said that. Not jealousy, just a deep, aching recognition of what I'd been missing, what I deserved but wasn't receiving. "My son plays golf on Sundays," I said quietly. George looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry." 2 words, but he said them like he meant them, like he actually saw me. Over the next 6 months, George and I became inseparable. We went for walks along the Assiniboine River. We tried new restaurants. We went to concerts at the Burton Cummings Theater. We laughed. God, I laughed more in those 6 months than I had in the 3 years since Thomas died. George made me feel like I mattered, like my time was valuable, like I was more than just someone's mother collecting dust on a shelf labeled family obligation. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset from his apartment balcony, George turned to me and said, "Helen, I know this might seem fast, but I'm 65. You're 63. We don't have time to waste. I love you. I want to spend whatever time we have left making you happy. Will you marry me?" I looked at this man, this kind, present, consistent man who showed up for me every single time, who called when he said he would, who made plans and kept them. "Yes," I said. We decided to get married at a small lakeside resort in Kenora, Ontario, just 2 hours east of Winnipeg. We'd rent a cabin, invite George's daughter Claire and a handful of close friends. Intimate, simple, perfect. I thought about telling Marcus. I picked up the phone 5 different times, but every time I remembered those 14 canceled Sunday dinners, the 8 months of silence, the text that said, "Just do whatever you want." So I did what I wanted. I didn't tell him. George's daughter flew in from Montreal. She brought her husband and their 2 kids. They embraced me like family from the moment we met. "Dad talks about you constantly," Claire said, hugging me tight. "Thank you for making him so happy." When was the last time Marcus thanked me for anything? The wedding was beautiful. We got married on the dock at sunset. I wore a simple cream dress. George wore a navy suit. The lake was like glass. The sky was pink and gold. Claire's children threw wildflowers. Everyone cried happy tears. George's best friend from Vancouver took photos. Lots of photos. The dock, the ceremony, the dinner afterwards. Me and George cutting the small cake, dancing barefoot by the water. Claire posted some of them on Facebook that night. She tagged George. She captioned it, "My dad married the love of his life today." I was tagged in the photos. That's how Marcus found out. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7 a.m. I was still in bed at the resort, wrapped in George's arms. I looked at the screen. Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. By the time we got up for breakfast, I had 12 missed calls and 6 text messages. "Mom, call me." "Mom, what's going on?" "Mom, I'm seeing photos online. Did you get married? Why didn't you tell me? Why wasn't I there?" "Mom, call me." George saw my face. "You okay?" he asked gently. "My son just found out," I said. "Do you want to call him back?" I thought about it. I looked at my new husband, this man who chose me every day, who showed up, who made me a priority. "Not yet," I said. "Let's have breakfast first." We had pancakes and coffee on the resort patio. We held hands across the table. We made plans for our honeymoon, a trip to the Maritimes, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, places I'd always wanted to see. After breakfast, I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. "Mom, what the hell?" "Hello, Marcus. You got married? You got married and didn't tell me?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I did." "Why?" His voice was sharp, wounded. "Why wouldn't you invite your own son to your wedding?" I took a breath. "Marcus, I tried to invite you to Sunday dinners for 14 weeks straight. You canceled every single time. For golf." Then I stopped trying. It took you 8 months to even notice I'd stopped calling. So when I decided to get married, I did what you told me to do. I did what I wanted, and what I wanted was a wedding with people who actually show up for me. Silence. Heavy silence. Then, "That's not fair, isn't it?" I kept my voice steady. Not angry, just honest. "When's the last time you made time for me, Marcus? Real time. Not a guilt-motivated coffee. Not a rushed phone call. When's the last time you chose me over golf? Over poker? Over your buddies?" "Mom, you don't understand." Those things are important for my career. And I'm your mother. Doesn't that count for something? More silence. Who is this guy? Marcus finally asked. This George? How long have you even known him? What if he's after your money? What if he's taking advantage of you? There it was. The real concern. Not my happiness, not my loneliness. Money. The house. The inheritance. George is a retired engineer, I said. He owns his condo outright. He has a pension. He's not after my money, Marcus. He's after my company. Something you haven't wanted in 3 years. That's not true. I've been busy. You know I've been busy. Busy for 3 years straight? Too busy for a single Sunday dinner? Marcus, everyone makes time for what matters to them. You made time for golf, for poker, for squash, for your buddies. You just didn't make time for me. I heard him breathing hard on the other end. People are asking me about it, he said finally. My clients saw the photos. They're asking why I wasn't at my own mother's wedding. Do you know how that makes me look? And there it was. The truth. He wasn't hurt that I got married without him. He was embarrassed. It made him look bad, neglectful, the successful financial advisor who couldn't even maintain a relationship with his own mother. That's on you, Marcus, I said quietly. You chose golf tournaments over your mother. You chose poker nights over family dinners. You chose your image over actual relationship. So if people are judging you now, maybe that's a lesson you needed to learn. A lesson? His voice went hard. You're teaching me a lesson? By getting married in secret? I'm not teaching you anything, I said. I'm just living my life, with people who value my presence. George's daughter flew in from Montreal for the wedding. She calls her father every Sunday, every single Sunday, Marcus. Without fail, because she understands that relationships require showing up, not just when it's convenient, not just when there's nothing better to do, but consistently, reliably. I could hear Stephanie's voice in the background. Marcus, let me talk to her. I'm handling this, Marcus snapped at her. Clearly not, I murmured. What? Nothing. Marcus, I need to go. George and I are going for a walk. Mom, wait. Can we talk about this? Can we meet up when you're back? Maybe, I said. If it doesn't conflict with your tea time. I hung up. George was standing in the doorway. You okay? He asked. I looked at this man, my husband, my partner, the person who saw me, who chose me, who showed up. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. We spent the rest of the week at the resort, swimming, reading, talking. George's daughter and her family joined us for dinners. They asked me about teaching, about my life, about my favorite books. They listened, they cared. When we got back to Winnipeg, Marcus's car was in my driveway. He got out as we pulled up. Stephanie was with him. They both looked uncomfortable. Mom, Marcus started. We need to talk. About what? I asked, getting out of George's car. About this. He gestured vaguely. About him, about the wedding, about everything. George squeezed my hand. I'll give you privacy, he said. No, I said. Stay, please. George stayed, his hand in mine. Marcus looked at our joined hands. His jaw tightened. Mom, this is family business. George is family now, I said. He's my husband. We don't even know him. That's because you never asked. In the 6 months I've been seeing George, you never once asked me how I was doing, what I was up to, who I was spending time with. You were too busy with golf. Stephanie stepped forward. She looked genuinely upset. Helen, I'm sorry. I know we've been distant, but this is a lot. You got married without telling us. We just want to understand. I looked at her. Sweet Stephanie, who sent apologetic emojis but never actually changed anything. I understand you're surprised, I said. But Stephanie, I spent 14 weeks trying to have dinner with my son, 14 weeks of cooking meals that went uneaten, of setting tables that stayed empty, of waiting for phone calls that never came. At some point, I realized I was making myself smaller and smaller, trying to fit into Marcus's schedule, trying to be convenient, low maintenance, undemanding, and I was disappearing. My voice cracked slightly. George squeezed my hand. So, when I met George, I continued, and he made me feel seen again, feel valued, feel like my time mattered. I held on to that. I chose that. And yes, I got married without telling you. Because I wanted my wedding to be filled with people who've been showing up for me, not people I've been begging to show up. Marcus's face was red. So this is punishment? You're punishing me? No, Marcus. I'm just done waiting for you to realize I exist. That's not fair. I've had a lot going on. Work is demanding. The golf tournaments are networking. I'm building my career. And I was building a relationship with my son, I said. But you can't build something with someone who's never there. Stephanie started crying. Helen, we're sorry. We really are. Can we start over? Can we try to fix this? I looked at them. My son, my daughter-in-law. Both of them standing in my driveway, finally paying attention, finally showing up, but only because I'd embarrassed them, only because their neglect had become public. I don't know, I said honestly. Marcus, you're my son. I love you. But love isn't enough if it's one-sided. If I'm the only one reaching out, the only one trying, the only one who cares. I care, Marcus protested. Do you? I asked. Or do you just care that people saw those wedding photos, that your clients are asking questions? Marcus, be honest. If those photos hadn't gone viral, if no one had seen them, would you be here right now? Or would you still be at the golf course? He opened his mouth, closed it, couldn't answer. That silence told me everything. I think you should go, I said quietly. George and I have unpacking to do. Mom. Marcus, please, just go. They left. Stephanie crying. Marcus angry. Their car disappearing down the street. George pulled me close. That was hard, he said. It was necessary, I replied. That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything. About Thomas. About the years I'd spent being a good wife, a good mother. About how I'd poured myself into those roles until they'd become my entire identity. And about how, when Thomas died, I'd expected Marcus to step up, to be there, to help fill the void. Instead, he'd stepped away, into golf, into poker, into a life that didn't include me except as an afterthought. I thought about those Sunday dinners, the 14th canceled plan, the 8 months of silence, the moment I realized that if I disappeared tomorrow, it might take Marcus weeks to notice. And I thought about George, about Claire calling every Sunday, about being welcomed into their family like I'd always belonged there, about feeling cherished instead of tolerated. I thought about the question that had changed everything. If you stopped showing up the way I did, how long do you think it would take before someone noticed you were gone? For me, the answer had been unbearable. So I'd stopped waiting for Marcus to notice. I'd started building a life where I was seen, where I mattered, where my presence was a gift, not a burden. Did I feel guilty about the wedding? A little, but not enough to regret it, because here's what I'd learned. You can't force someone to value you. You can't make someone prioritize you. You can't beg your way into mattering. All you can do is stop shrinking yourself to fit into their life. Stop waiting for them to make space for you. Stop accepting crumbs and calling it love. All you can do is walk away. Build something new. With people who show up. Marcus called 3 more times that week. I didn't answer. I needed time, space, clarity. George and I went on our honeymoon. The Maritimes were beautiful. We walked on red sand beaches in PEI. We ate lobster in New Brunswick. We watched the tides in the Bay of Fundy. Claire called George every Sunday, even on vacation, even when we were in different time zones. She called because that's what people do when they care. They show up consistently. On our last night in Nova Scotia, sitting on a bench overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, George said, "Helen, I need you to know something. You're not asking too much. You never were. Marcus made you feel like wanting his time, his attention, his presence was a burden, but it's not. It's the bare minimum of what a son should give his mother. And you deserved better." I cried, right there on that bench, because I'd needed to hear that. For 3 years, I'd been telling myself maybe I was too needy, too demanding. Maybe I should be more understanding of Marcus's busy life. But I wasn't too needy. I was lonely, and there's a difference. When we got back to Winnipeg, there was a letter on my doorstep from Marcus. I opened it carefully. Inside, handwritten on nice stationery, were 3 pages. He apologized for the canceled dinners, for the 8 months of silence, for not noticing I'd stopped reaching out, for making his career more important than his mother, for only showing up when he was embarrassed. He wrote about how Stephanie had told him he was being selfish, how his own golfing buddies had asked why he wasn't at his mother's wedding, how his boss, a family man, had looked at him differently after seeing the photos. He wrote that he wanted to actually try, to have Sunday dinners again, to call, to be present. He wrote, "I don't know if I can fix this, but I want to try, if you'll let me." I read the letter twice. Then I showed it to George. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think that's up to you," George said, "but I'll support whatever you decide." I thought about it for a long time. Days, weeks, and here's what I decided. I would give Marcus a chance. One chance. But not on the same terms as before. I called him. "I got your letter," I said. "Mom." His voice broke. "Thank you for calling." "Marcus, I'm willing to try. But things have to be different. I'm not going to be the one always reaching out, always initiating, always waiting. If you want a relationship with me, you have to show up for it, consistently, not just when it's convenient." "I will," he said. "I promise." "Don't promise," I said. "Just do it. Show me through actions, not words." We started small. Sunday brunch once a month. Marcus's choice. He had to initiate. He had to call me and set it up. The first month, he did. We met at a cafe in Osborne Village. It was awkward at first, stilted, but we talked, really talked, about Thomas, about his childhood, about my loneliness, about his regrets. The second month he called again. This time he invited George too. We had dinner at a nice restaurant. Marcus asked George about engineering, about Vancouver, about his daughter. He was trying. I could see it. The third month, Marcus and Stephanie invited us to their house. Stephanie cooked. We played board games. It felt almost normal. But I kept my guard up, because actions over time matter more than words in the moment. And I'd been disappointed before. 6 months after the wedding, Marcus called me on a Wednesday. "Mom, I know this isn't our scheduled brunch, but I wanted to hear your voice. How are you?" I smiled. "I'm good, Marcus, really good." "I'm glad," he said, and he sounded like he meant it. "Is everything perfect now?" No. There are still awkward moments. Still reminders of the 3 years of distance. Still scars. But we're trying, and that's more than I had before. I'm 64 now. George and I have been married for a year and a half. We've traveled to 7 provinces. We've hosted Claire and her family 3 times. We've built a life that's full and rich and joyful. Marcus is part of that life now, but he's not the center of it. And that's okay. That's healthy. Because I learned something crucial at 63 years old, standing in my kitchen after the 14th canceled Sunday dinner. Your worth isn't determined by how much someone values you. It's determined by how much you value yourself. I spent 3 years shrinking, making myself smaller, less demanding, more convenient, waiting for Marcus to notice, to care, to choose me. And the day I stopped waiting was the day my life began again. So if you're reading this, if you're listening to this story, and you see yourself in it, if you're the one always reaching out, always getting canceled on, always being told something came up, please hear me. You're not asking too much. You're asking the bare minimum. And if someone can't give you that, if someone consistently chooses golf over you, poker over you, anything and everything over you, then stop waiting. Stop making yourself smaller to fit into their life. Start building a life where you're cherished, where you're prioritized, where your presence is celebrated, not tolerated. Will it hurt? Yes. Will it be scary? Absolutely. Will people be angry or confused or hurt when you stop accepting less than you deserve? Probably. But you know what? That's their issue to work through, not yours. Your issue is this. What kind of life do you want to live? One where you're constantly waiting for someone to see you? or one where you're surrounded by people who already do? I chose the latter. At 63, after 42 years of marriage, after 3 years of widowhood, after 14 canceled dinners, and it was the best decision I ever made. Because love, real love, doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't demand that you make yourself convenient. It doesn't ask you to wait indefinitely for someone to realize you're worth their time. Real love shows up. On Sundays, on Wednesdays, on random Tuesday afternoons. Real love makes space for you, makes time for you, makes you a priority, not an afterthought. And if the people in your life aren't giving you that, then maybe it's time to find people who will. I found George in a library, in the biography section, at 63 years old, when I'd given up on being seen. And he saw me. Every day. Without fail. That's what I deserved all along. That's what you deserve too. So stop waiting. Start living. And remember, you're not too needy. You're not too demanding. You're not asking too much. You're just asking to be loved the way you deserve. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all.